Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. Cantarella. You're here because you pulled her for two very buoyant reasons. Her Olympic swimming capabilities and her large damage output to all of our wallets. We'll be going over everything you need to know in today's ultimate guide video on Cantarella.
Engulfed by Sea's venom. I'll keep you company. Try not. That's it.
Quick note, this video was filmed on the media server and things may be subject to change upon the official release. Please check the comments below to see if anything changed. Cantarella, despite being a healer, really puts the wait, wrong game. She puts the kill in skilled healer? Okay, I got nothing better than that, but basically she's a healer that actually does good damage and also a bunch of coordinated attacks because why not? As usual, we'll go over her kit, echoes and stats, weapons, sequences, best teammates, a showcase, and finally my opinion at the end of the video.
Engulfed by Sea's venom.
As for her kit, it's got a lot of text, enough to drown a jellyfish, but fortunately, I've weathered the waves, so you didn't have to. Her basic attacks are fairly unremarkable, with her basic 3 generating 1 trance, aka 1 tick of her forte bar. When you have 1 or more trance, you can hold the basic attack button to enter Mirage mode. While in Mirage mode, your basic attacks now consume your forte trance thing, and each Mirage basic generates one of these corn on the cob icon things at the bottom called shivers. Also, when you run out of trances, you'll automatically exit Mirage state. Once you have 3 of these shiver me timbers, now you can do her super forte skill, Perception Drain. This consumes all 3 shivers and does some good damage and generates a lot of concerto. Next, let's talk about her resonance skill. While you're not in Mirage state, simply using this generates 1 trance. Then we have her Mirage state resonance skill, Flickering Reverie. This thing will put nearby targets in Hazy Dream, which is when they're super slow and funny looking. Also, Cantarella will do a bit of extra jolt damage once to an enemy in Hazy Dream, and she'll remove Hazy Dream when she hits them. Finally, her Liberation does stuff.
See, in the whispers of silence.
The first stuff that it does is generate 3 out of her 5 trances. The second stuff it does is that it gives your party diffusion, which is basically a bunch of jellyfish coordinated attacks, which obviously still works when she's off field. So basically, her gameplay loop is to generate her top forte bars trances, enter Mirage mode, do 3 Mirage basics to generate 3 shivers, and then use her super forte skill. Now you might have noticed I didn't talk about her healing or her built-in echo skill mechanic. That's because these things don't affect the way that you play her and just occur naturally as you use her. But let's go over them really quick. For her healing, she'll heal the full party when she spends her trances, primarily from her Mirage basics. And she also has a unique mechanic based on echo usage. After she casts her intro skill, not only can she use her B3 immediately after, anytime a different echo is used, Cantarella will gain 6 concerto up to 6 times per 25 seconds. Her Liberation, her Mirage resonance skill, and her Forte skill each count as using an echo, and this ends up just being a fancy way to say that these abilities generate more concerto. Fortunately, while this passive does have room for min-maxing for sweaties out there, like swap canceling some teammates' echoes during her rotation, for most of us, just play as you normally would and treat this as some built-in additional concerto gain for Cantarella. As for her major passives, she basically just gains some damage and some healing. And finally, her outro skill amplifies the incoming resonator's havoc damage by 20% and their resonance skill by 25% for 14 seconds. This is one of the ones where you can't switch out the on-field character without losing it. For her talent priority, level her forte, then her skill and liberation, followed by her basics, and lastly, her intro skill. Cantarella's cookie cutter rotation is as follows. Intro her onto the field and you can perform a B3 right after. Then use her skill, liberation, and then her heavy attack to enter Mirage mode. Then use her Mirage skill, Mirage basics 1 through 3, and now you'll have the Shiver Me Timbers, where you can use your Super Forte skill, and then just use your Echo and you'll have 100 Concerto where you can outro. After your first rotation, you can skip the basic 3 since you'll have a bit more Concerto from allies' Echoes. Alright, and while you're in Mirage state, dodge counters will also give you a Shiver, allowing you to replace a Mirage basic if you want.
I'll keep you company. Try not. That's it.
Up next are Cantarella's Echoes, 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 and we've got a few sets to talk about. Since Cantarella actually does decent damage, the Havoc Eclipse is the best option for maximizing her own personal damage output. For the main echo, use the Nightmare Crownless. However, many of us will likely be using her more in a supportive role, and fortunately, Cantarella has 4 great support sets to consider as well. With a Havoc teammate like Camellia, the Midnight Veil is a great option as it also gives the incoming resonator 15% Havoc damage bonus, while also being good for her own personal damage output. You should use Lorelei for the equip slot as she gives 12% Havoc damage and 12% basic attack damage. The next set worth considering is the Moonlit Clouds. This set sacrifices a good chunk of Cantarella's own damage, but it's great for buffing a strong DPS's damage, especially a non-Havoc DPS. For example, this is a good set to use with Carlotta, who, well, does a lot of damage. You should use the Impermanence Heron in the equip slot. Lastly, we have the Empyrean set, which is surprisingly usable on her. While she also sacrifices some of her personal damage, the 20% attack buff that she provides the on-field agent via her coordinated attacks is quite good. Also, a non-negligible amount of her damage is coordinated attack damage, and while this set significantly buffs her own coordinated attack damage, so it's not the worst thing for her personal damage output. For the main slot, you should equip Hecate, as it gives coordinated attack damage. One last echo set worth mentioning is the Rejuvenating Glow. She is a capable wielder of this set, although she does sacrifice too much damage for it to be worth it from a team DPS perspective. However, in the short term, or if your team just calls for it, you can use this set. For the main stats, it's the usual 4-3-3-1-1, crit rate, Havoc, Havoc, Attack, Attack. As usual, you can use one attack percent 3 cost echo and not lose too much damage. As for energy requirements, around 130% is generally enough for most situations, although some teams do need more and some teams do need less. If you do struggle getting her liberation up, you can temporarily swap to an energy regen 3 cost echo while you grind for those perfect echo substats. For substats, it's the usual energy regen until 130% or however much you need, crit rate, crit damage, attack percent, and finally basic attack damage, as most of her damage counts as basic attack damage.
Engulfed by Sea's venom.
Breaking news! Her signature rectifier is her best option. Needless to say, she can easily grow to fill her rectifier's expectations because her kit automatically counts as echo cast, giving it 2 stacks, which grants her 40% basic attack damage and 12% havoc resistance ignore. Honestly, this rectifier's performance boost is too huge to ignore. Now, if you don't have the biggest tool in the shed, the next best rectifier is Joju's signature, Rhyme Drape Sprouts. Fortunately, it does have some pretty thick basic attack damage boosts throughout it. After that, we have Yinlin's signature rectifier, the String Master, where it's honestly starting to look a bit small, specifically the damage numbers. And the Cosmic Ripples, well, unfortunately, it's not always about how you use it because you'll be feeling like something's missing, aka around 25% of her damage. And let's not even mention the Augment, which you should only resort to if you're really desperate. Anyway, here's the chart of her full catalog of her favorite rectifiers.
I'll keep you company. Try not. That's it.
We've made it to the part of the video with the worst retention. So here's a gif of Cantarella. As usual, sequences 1 and 2 are quite powerful, with her sequence 1 generating more trance and giving all 3 variations of her resonance skill 50% higher multipliers as well as interrupt resistance during perception drain. This is a major damage boost as well as a nice bit of quality of life. Her sequence 2 causes her liberation to also force the enemy into hazy dream, and Jolt now does way more damage. Sequence 3 is also a significant boost since it increases her resonance liberation multiplier by a ton and allows her to skip the heavy attack to enter into Mirage state. For free-to-plays, Sequence 0 is plenty good enough, but if you really have a passion for jellyfish, Sequences 1, 2, and 3 provide the largest gains to her power, and this is a good stopping point for most dolphins. Sequence 4 increases her healing, Sequence 5 gives her a few more coordinated attacks, and Sequence 6 is another big one as she'll ignore some defense and be able to use her Flickering Reverie more often.
I'll keep you company. Try not. That's it.
Up next are her teams. Thanks to her being a healer, coordinated attacker, a damage dealer, and providing skill damage outro buffs, she's a pretty flexible character. One of the initially most apparent teams is with Camellia, Cantarella, and Shorekeeper, as Camellia can make good use of Cantarella's Havoc damage outro buff. Other DPS characters that happen to do a lot of skill damage like Carlotta also work well with Cantarella. A team I thought felt pretty good personally is Jinshi, Cantarella, and Verena. Verena being literally one of the best characters for providing double intros, along with both Verena's and Cantarella's coordinated attacks, are able to effortlessly fill Jinshi up for big Dragon Puke nukes. And since Cantarella also heals, you can use something like Sanhua, Cantarella, and Carlotta. Lastly, a team I personally enjoyed was Cantarella main DPS with Sanhua and Shorekeeper. While on paper this team deals less damage, it still felt quite viable.
Engulfed by sea's venom.
Alright, we made it to the showcase section of this video, and we're going to start off with kind of a team that most people are probably going to be really curious about is how is she with Camellia. And the good news is that she is pretty good with Camellia because of the Havoc damage outro boost. You can see here that we are just doing the cookie cutter rotation, I believe. And I gotta be completely honest though, when I use Camellia, I do struggle a bit because I find that when I use dodge counter with her, it takes her a long time to get back to spin to winning. So that just kind of leaves trying to face tank what you can as the main option, but still Camellia is doing a hefty amount of damage. You can see there 180 something thousand damage on her big Forte Flower Bloom attack, and back in time, just in time for Shorekeepers before her thing exploded. So we managed to, you know, get that super intro out of the way, and now it is back to, I believe, Camellia's turn here, where she is going to spin to win shortly, although I guess it probably had some unoptimal rotations there for Cantarella there. Sometimes, you know, it just happens. So yeah, I didn't do too many runs for each team. I just want to make sure that each team, you know, kind of worked as advertised, and to see, like, you know, if there were any like major issues with them. And in this case, obviously there weren't. Very quick and easy clear of the dragon. And I chose this dragon because it is elementally neutral, although it is only at level 90 instead of level 100. So that does make a pretty big difference in terms of how easy it is to kill. So the next team is one that I personally had a lot of fun with, and this is main DPS Cantarella. And on paper, this team does do less damage, but because of the kind of damage thresholds that you need to hit for this specific boss, I actually ended up clearing this dragon faster with a main DPS Cantarella. Now, full disclosure, you don't really have a whole lot of very impactful or useful things you can do after you kind of do like her initial like Forte, Jellyfish, Explode, Perception Drain, whatever it's called. And yeah, so I was just kind of like stalling and spending some extra time, so that way Shorekeeper's Liberation would come back off of cooldown, and then you just kind of cycle through this rotation again. And in this case, for the third one, you can actually see her damage numbers are pretty substantial. What was that, like over 300,000 damage nuke with both hits of Perception Drain taken into account? But now that she's you know, drained of her Perception Drain, her damage output isn't, you know, as good after that. So anyway, good old Sanhua here. Sanhua the goat buffing another basic attack damage character because, yeah, she is just that crazy. Her short field time plus everything. And really, Sanhua has been the MVP for so many patches now. But this next team is a team that focuses on double intro for Jinshi. Because in this case, Cantarella is basically functioning as a zhi substitute because she does a lot of coordinated attacks, and she happens to buff skill damage very similarly, and I think they even have similar-ish field times as well, but don't quote me on that. But yeah, anyway, so we go into intro number 1 into Jinshi, where for the first rotation, obviously, she doesn't have very many like stacks on her thingy, but now we can actually use Verena to double intro Jinshi on the field. Okay, Verena is actually at sequence 2 with the variation, I believe is what it's called, the one that gives Concerto energy. But yeah, so besides Verena being at sequence 2, everyone else has sequence 0 or 1. But yeah, anyway, we can see here, kind of skipped ahead, we can see she's managed to get a couple of full blast, fully juiced up Dragon Puke nukes on them because of the coordinated attacks from both Verena as well as Cantarella, and clearing out this level 100 Tempest dude in a very, very reasonable amount of time. Now, the next team is Carlotta. Now, Carlotta these days has just been, she just feels really great to use. Probably my personal favorite DPS character recently in Wuthering Waves. You know, she's got her built-in freeze, she's got range, and, you know, she's able to kind of dodge and stuff without being too punished, generally speaking. So, yeah, anyway, great character. So, Here we can see me getting walloped here. Absolutely terrible rotation, but out of the 3 runs I did with Carlotta, this one ended up being the fastest. Sometimes, you know, even if you get, you know, your butt whooped, it ends up being the fastest run. But yeah, no big deal. Either way, you can see just Carlotta just outputting a ton of damage. Now, I don't know, maybe this dragon might be weak to Glacier. I actually don't know its resistances, but this chamber, at least in the tower right now, is weak to arrow damage. Like the buff is for arrow damage. So in this case, this team is all doing like neutral or however much damage against the this dragon dude. And yeah, just go through the typical rotations, the typical motions. And unfortunately, since we are a bit short of, well, not a bit short, but significantly short of single cycling this boss, that means that we're gonna have to go through the motions to go through the second rotation. Although I probably could have just brought on Carlotta, you know, onto the field even earlier, but alas, no big deal. A very easy clear for the dragon thing. Now, up next, I decided, hey, let's just sequence 6 R5 everyone because we have the resources on this media server. So we're going to go ahead and just do Shorekeeper outro into Sanhua, and this will be able to outro us a sequence 6 refinement 5 Cantarella, who's going to do some massive damage. And right here, when her big perception drain hits, that's nearly 600,000 damage. So yeah, obviously money buys power, and there's no exception here.
I'll keep you company. Try not. That's it.
As you can see, Cantarella provides a lot of roll compression and some nice overworld traversal with her incredible swimming speeds, and her flexibility in combat is sure to be valuable for anyone's account. Let me know what you think about Cantarella down in the comments below, and let me know the 2 biggest reasons why you pulled for her. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Went to Lose, signing out.